Morning, guys. The workout is done. Rushing home, get the babies to school, and get after it. I got a story for you to follow up to my last one, to show you or tell you guys that I practice what I preach, that I don't just tell you to bet on yourself without having to do it myself. I've always done it. But 10 years ago, I want to give you an example. I started my first recruiting company, and we were 3 years in, and as I like to say, throughout the 3 years without a coach, God gave me enough rope not to hang myself. It was a grind. It was up and down and up and down and up and down. Every time I felt like I got through the breakthrough, I'd get fucking hammered and have just fucking 0 months. And it was just that way. But then I was having a kid. And throughout that year, I was determined I got to get this business figured out. And sure enough, I put a lot of deals on the table. And as it would happen, as my first child was about a month away from being born, deals started falling apart. It was towards the end of the year. He was going to be born right around Thanksgiving. And I had all these deals on the plate because if you know anything about hiring, September, October, November, super busy. Those deals get in the end zone, then it doesn't pick up again until February, right? So I had wanted to scale. I had started recruiting, and when I started recruiting, I was making $5,000 per placement. It was a flat fee, which if you know recruiting, that is not a lot of money for the work that you have to do. And I slowly but surely niched my way up to $8,000 deals, and then $10,000 deals, and then $12,000 deals. And then I was hanging around the really the $20,000 deal. Let's just call it average deal was about $18,000 that year, 2015. My son was going to be born, the first one. And I'm just trying to get out of it because I left corporate America. I had made some bad decisions. I had lost some money, and now I'd started this business. I invested all of it into the business, all my sweat equity, my entire relationship with my wife was in this business as well. And now we're having our first kid, and I really haven't figured it out. And deals start falling off, and I have one deal left, and it's worth $60,000, right? So I etched my way up into a high VP sales, and I had a $60,000 deal. And everything went well until it didn't. Literally, the ball was on the 1 yard line for 2 months, and then the deal fell apart, and I had nothing. My son was going to be born in 2 weeks, and I had maybe a couple $100 in the bank account. I didn't have rent. I didn't have savings, and I was fucked, okay? So what did I do? I did the one thing that I could do. I reached out to somebody that had already been where I was, had already had tons of deals fall apart, and could give me some guidance, could give me a roadmap to where I could go. I called up a coach, and he wanted $3,500 that I did not have, okay? But I was convinced that this man, if I could get $3,500, this guy would be able to guide me through this deal. And if I can get that in return a $60,000 placement fee, it would 100% be worth the $3,500 that I didn't have. So me and this coach had a long conversation, and I decided I'm going to put it on a credit card. I had one credit card that I had not put any money on for many years. I just had it as emergency, and it had a $4,000 limit on it. So I took $3,500 and I charged it on this card. The moment I did that, my wife kind of went into labor. Meaning there was some complications and we had to rush her to the hospital. And the baby was coming out 2 weeks earlier. And my deal is falling apart, and I just took $3,500 and paid a fucking coach, okay? Here's what happened. I got on that phone, I told the coach everything I had done, where it went wrong, where it stood right now, and to please, dear Jesus, give me a solution, because I could not go close a new account in the next week, which I would have had to raise $15K. I would have rather closed this deal. We spent 20 minutes together strategizing. I wrote every fucking word this guy gave me on a sheet of paper. My wife is in the hospital. I'm home. I ran home, got the dogs, practiced my script for 5 minutes, realized the value of it, and got on the phone and called the CEO. And I said, hey, I know this deal fell apart, but let me tell you why I think it's worth investing. And I used all the things this guy taught me. You know what the guy said? He said, Dane, actually, I'm going to San Francisco tomorrow. This isn't a bad idea. Why don't you see if your client can meet me? I said, you got it. I called the client. I said, hey man, I know things fell apart. Let's put the money aside. He's coming to San Francisco. He wants to meet you, right? Let's just take the money off the table and see if it's a good fit. So they met. Now the next day, they say the baby's coming. So now, if you can imagine, I'm pretty fucking stressed. I got no money. I have a business that I don't know if it's going to survive, but I'm convinced it's going to survive. And I've bet the house on it that it's going to survive because I was the only living person that could make it survive. And so now my son's coming. And my son actually comes out. And I was in a really weird place because I was celebrating this really great moment of my first son coming into the world, and it was chaotic, and he had to go in the NICU for 9 days, and at the same time both of my dogs got fleas, and we had to throw out almost 90% of our furniture while my wife was in the hospital, and I have no money in the bank, and I bet the house. And that evening my son is transferred from one hospital to the next in a NICU box because he was having trouble breathing. There's complications. It's another story. But essentially, dude, as you can see, there's a lot of unknown. The only known was I bet on myself, and the other unknown was I had faith that it was going to work out. And honestly, I had nothing to lose because if it didn't work out and I didn't invest, I was going to be in a worse situation. So I had to do it. So I took that money and I did, and I went through that routine. And then I called the client the day my son's born at 4 o'clock just to see if they met and what happened. And he says, hey, I'm sitting here with Dylan, who's the candidate at the time. He said, yeah, I just hired him and he actually started an hour ago. When I tell you, I could not fucking believe it. I could, but I couldn't. I had been saved beyond saved. I made $60,000 that day, and that was the biggest ticket I had ever sold in my life. It was on the day of my son's birth. And the only way that I made that money, and from there on, we've never taken a deal less than $50,000. In my headhunting firm, our average deal is $50,000, some of them upwards over 6 figures, okay? None of that would have been possible, guys, if I didn't invest $3,500 at that time with that coach. I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have survived. I would have crumbled, and I would have had to go back into the real world to get a job that paid me. That's how powerful that decision was. So if you believe in yourself and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you're going to have these roadblocks in life where you've got to put your sack on the table and make a decision. And you're either betting on yourself or you're betting on somebody else's vision. I bet on my vision that day. And the remainder of that season was blessed. I was able to enjoy the holiday season with my family. I was able to take a breather. I was able to reset. And we went after the next year like fucking savages and made over $500,000 the following year from one $3,500 coach. That is how powerful. That coach still pays dividends for me 10 years later. And I've hired many other coaches because as you scale, you get different problems and you need different skill sets. But the power of a coach and the power of a decision is in this story. I literally had everything on the line. Now, do you think if I went to my wife in that situation, instead of being a fucking man and making the decision for us, and said, hey, honey, I know you're having these baby complications and you've been birthing the baby for 9 months, but could you let me spend money on myself? Get the fuck out of here, guys that do that shit. Go be a fucking man and make a decision. I don't know why I'm so passionate about it, because it drives me fucking nuts that you defer power over your own life to somebody else. It's a weak fucking mentality. You know who else does it? Smart business owners. When they don't want to buy shit, they defer power of authority. Roll. And it's just an excuse. This is unbelievable how bad of a driver this guy is. So, dude, you are such a bad driver. All right. So, you guys, you should hear this. And if you don't like the message, then unfollow me. But the guys that hear it are inspired, and they know, man, this is me. This is me. I blew that decision, and I blew that decision, and I blew that fucking decision. And now I'm 45, and I'm still fucking deferring power on decisions. When are you going to make the decision for you? That's the whole point. The way you look and the way you feel is because of the decisions that you've made or you have not made. So when next time you get on a call with somebody who's accomplished something that you want, whether it's business, financial, health, you should not get on the call unless you're ready to make a decision on yourself. And at that point, you take a call. Until that point, just keep kicking the fucking can down the road to make yourself feel better and save people the time and energy. Because you're not ready to bet on yourself. And the data supports that statement. So hopefully this story resonates with you, because that was life-changing for me. If I didn't fucking bet on myself then, I would be a completely different husband. I'd probably be divorced, because I would have been a weak man. A weak man who was resentful and angry all the fucking time because I didn't do what I knew I needed to do. And now I was playing life on my heels. And that's not the person my wife married. So yeah, she probably would have divorced me, and I probably would have forced her hand in doing that, because I would have said, this isn't what you fucking signed up for. You signed up to be led. You signed up to have somebody hold your hand and protect you, and I ain't fucking doing that. You know why? Because I can't even lead myself. So how the fuck am I going to lead you? If I can't make a decision on my own that's going to help me advance my life and solve problems that I clearly have, then I certainly can't solve your problems and our kids' problems. So that's something to think about, guys. The power of a decision always lies within you, and that decision is made based on whether or not you believe in yourself. And if you believe in yourself, you don't ever need somebody else's approval or somebody else to stamp, yeah, do it. You just fucking do it. And you tell people, this is what I did, and this is why I did it. Now sit back and fucking watch. That's how you do it. When I got on my journey, I didn't even fucking tell my wife. I just put my fucking head down and became a savage. And eventually she realized, like, hey, how come you're doing this? And how come you're doing that? Because I don't like the way I fucking look and feel, and I don't want to fucking bitch and moan about it anymore. I don't want you to hear me cry like a little bitch, and I don't want to hear myself cry like a little bitch anymore. So I'm just going to put that shit aside, and I'm going to tell you right now, just watch. In 90 days, you will have a much better man running this house for you. And sure as shit, she did. And ever since then, 1.0 became 2.0, and then 2.0 came 2.5, and now I'm working on 3.0, Dane. And then next year I'll be working on 3.5, because it never stops. And you know what? I'll hire more coaches, and I'll buy more blueprints, and I'll speed up the process, because that's what you have to do. We don't have our whole life to do our goals. And when it comes to building muscle or getting fit, you certainly have a time clock. You certainly have urgency baked in. So to keep thinking you can kick the can down the road on health and fitness and magically one day it's going to change, brother, you're wrong. Your health's not always going to be strong. Your muscles aren't always going to respond the way you want them to. Your motivation might not always be there. You just got to fucking put those feelings aside and do it now. Or live with that regret for the rest of your life, like I would have if I didn't bet on myself. So hopefully that helps. Think about that. This was a passionate talk, but that's what I'm about. Later.